Hey, this is Dr. Sean or Reverend Sean over at the Centered Path, and we're going over some Buddhist concepts. And one of the concepts I wanted to go over actually was this up here, which is small actions lead to big results. We often say in Buddhism, drop by drop, a bucket fills until it overflows. And this is with actions, this is a karmic idea where little actions eventually lead to too much, right? I mean, even in Japanese, they have sayings like, even the dust that you see flying around will eventually settle and can make a mountain. So that has to do with ikigai and some of these other concepts. And one of the things that happened recently, I noticed this online, is that people were selling a yoga mat with a depiction of the Buddha on the mat. And you see people doing up dog and just all kinds of different cobra pose and these different poses right on the face of the Buddha. So you're putting your crotch and your butt and your boobs and all this kind of stuff on that, and that is really disrespectful. And a lot of people got angry with this and said, well, no, it's not disrespectful, it's because you're hyper attaching to it, and you're you don't understand that it's an unconsecrated image, and all of this kind of mumbo jumbo. None of that is true. Actually, reverence for the images of the Buddha. Now remember that the Buddha didn't have images, and in Buddhism there were no images of the Buddha for about 800 years after he passed away. They had different icons, maybe a tree or footprints or maybe a stag, which is a male deer. They would have those to exemplify the awakening and the movement and the path and those kind of things. Like my logo, for example, is the Centered Path, which is an Enzo with the footprints in it, and so that's why it's that way. And in a lot of Zen places or Chan places, you won't even see an image of the Buddha or any Buddhas or anything like that. But in all the rest of Buddhism, Theravada and Mahayana and Vajrayana, when you see these things, it is typical to show reverence for even a photograph. Now you'll see in Tibetan and Vajrayana Buddhism, whenever they have a picture, they'll hold it to the top of their head first before they hand it to anybody or even show anybody, and that's showing reverence. And that's a very small, little, tiny respect to show, so that you develop that consciousness and you develop that kind of sense of reverence for small things. Easy things. Now, when I was in temple, I remember one time we had a meditation retreat, and I had organized the whole thing, and it was a huge success. It was with Tricycle, which was a magazine, and we had a thing called Change Your Mind Day, and it was great, and we had all kinds of activities. It was a full day seminar, and we had a yoga instructor, and the only place that we had that was big enough to do yoga was actually the main hall in the temple. And the main hall in the temple at the front had a giant statue of the Buddha, and on the sides were like Mahakashapa and Shariputra or something like. I can't remember who is actually which part it was, but that was a long time ago. And the yoga instructor was doing yoga, and so people were doing yoga in front of the Buddha statue, which isn't terrible. However, she was facing away from the Buddha, teaching the class, and so when she would do like downward dog, she'd throw her butt right to the Buddha statue, and that really upset a lot of people. Now, we could say, oh, you're being too attached and all this kind of stuff. No, we're not being too attached. What we're being is respectful, and we want to train people to be respectful. This is why you take your shoes off when you go inside. You're not going to track crap everywhere. You're going to also bow. Right? And this is a sign of respect. And it doesn't mean that you're subjugating yourself completely. It doesn't mean that you're giving up your power. It doesn't mean that you're giving in to the man or whatever the hell it is. That's all nonsense. It shows that you're being humble and you're showing humility, and that's showing a consciousness of compassion. Really. And the other one too, another time, I had a meditation retreat at my office, and I held the door open, and I had a big statue of the Buddha, not big, it was this tall, statue of the Buddha, and I used it in the front of the door so that people could see that there was a Buddha there, and they would come in and this kind of stuff. And when the monk showed up to do the workshop with us, he was, you can't do that. Don't have one as a doorstop. So places you shouldn't have your Buddha statues. It would be like in the bathroom. Right? And people say things like, oh, well, at least it's better there than nowhere. No, it would be better not to have it in the bathroom. One, because it sees you when you're naked and you're pooping and all this kind of stuff. And that's just, you wouldn't want that for your most loved person you're with, or the most, someone you're taking care of, like a child or an elderly person or something like that. You wouldn't do that out of respect for someone that's an ancestor that has passed on. This is how we want to like develop that sense of respect, right? Same thing in your room, if you have it. A lot of places have like a butsudan or a little altar that is either shuttable or coverable. And that's just a thing to do. It's a mindfulness practice. It's a good mindfulness practice to do because we want to make sure that we're being conscientious of our actions to others. We're being conscientious of how that may insult others. Like, I don't insult the Quran or the Torah or the Bible or any books or images or crosses or anything like that. I'm respectful with all of them. If someone brought one to show me, I'd be very respectful with it. It's a very interesting thing. It doesn't mean, and because I'm a Buddhist, doesn't mean that I have to like throw it down, right? Is that going to cause any trouble? Yeah, it's going to cause suffering for me and for them. Instead, I can be like, oh, how beautiful, what nice artwork or whatever, right? So having that and trying to explain that to people is very difficult because people get triggered. And when they get triggered, they get emotional. And when they get emotional, they say things. And when we're trying to explain to people how to be a better person through the practice of the Buddhist concepts, one of them is just simple respect. So anyway, this is Reverend Sean over at the Center Path. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about small actions, the drop, right? Drops in a bucket eventually fill the bucket, good or bad. So be careful, and that's why we call precepts, the things that we talk about. We're thinking ahead. Before, sept means to think or to have it in your head. And to think ahead before you do things, right? Very simple. This is Reverend Sean of the Center Path, and if you have questions or comments, comment below. I was on Reddit, and I got like 30 comments on that one statement that I made. If you go over here, you can subscribe for more, and if you go over here, you can see another video. So I hope to talk to you guys soon, and let me know what you think about that. Talk to you later. Bye.